I don't know the detail of their concerns because, as I explained earlier, the county council has no direct responsibilities in terms of housing. We have strategic responsibilities in terms of zoning and what goes where, like residential areas, light industry and so on. Obviously I'm aware of the planning application, and as I understand it, it's to build, I think it's 28 new houses in that area. And that area is a residential area. I think there's a history of one or two of the older buildings fairly recently been demolished to create a bit of space. As I understand it, the Housing Association want to build these new houses.
Some of the local people, they think that housing development would mean that the area would become congested and sort of overbuilt. What do you think about that?
I suppose, well, that's an opinion. I think everybody has to use their best judgment on that. And I would expect Preston City Council, as the planning authority, I would expect their officers to do their numbers work well, to work out what is the what's a reasonable level in terms of density of housing for a particular area, not to go too far to make it overly dense, just to have a reasonable balance, and take into account other factors like traffic, access to schools, shops, things like that.
I believe that the traffic system there can get quite congested too.
Yeah.
What does the local council think about the traffic situation in Ribbleton?
Yeah, I mean I've been there quite a few times, and I mean I can imagine during the rush hour in particular, there is a bottleneck there.
Right.
And so if a concern of the residents was because there are so many extra houses, extra cars, extra bits of travelling going on, maybe the county council could be asked to look at a potential solution there to make some adjustments to the traffic system to make sure that it's easier access and egress and etc. And there are various measures that we could look at to make that happen. Were it to be demonstrated that was a problem.
Okay. And other than the congestion issue, I think some of the local people had plans for a local recreation area or park area for the children to play.
Yeah.
What do you think about the request for recreation area?
I think that's a perfectly reasonable request. I mean, I'm trying to remember that there are currently one or two fairly small areas for younger children to play in.
Yeah, small park.
And I know that there's the sort of area of green space as well.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I haven't got sufficient detail in terms of the proposal to see how much green area would still remain. So I mean, it's obviously good because there are lots of kids who live around there, and it's good for them to have safe playing areas close by to the house. Albeit there's a 5-minute walk away, there is Ribbleton Park. There is more playing area not too far away. But I can understand people wanting it to be as close to home as possible.
Yeah, I hear that the actually is it Brockhall School?
Yeah.
The Housing Association said that the school has agreed to open their playing facilities up if the project goes ahead. So I guess that's
well, that's a good move, and I mean that's a fairly consistent picture around the place.
Right.
And indeed, the city and the county and others have helped with funding sort of multi-use games areas, for example, in schools, where they're used by the school during the school day, and then open to local residents, say, of the evening and at weekends.
Right.
It's a good way of using resources.
Right. Okay. And just a final word, I think Ribbleton Councillor Brian Rollo said that the figure for people on the council house waiting list is 5,000 people. In your capacity as a Lancashire County Council, do you have any say in how to lessen that load on lighten that load on the?
Well, I'm always concerned not to tread on other people's toes, because if a city councillor is responsible for X, that's their job. If I'm responsible for Y, that's my job.
Yes.
But if there's anything that we can do to help them, because there's no disagreement, and it's a cross-party issue, it's not a party political issue. There is a waiting list, and we need to deal with that, and the best way to deal with that is to increase capacity across the city somewhere, in various pockets of estates and other places. And the more we can do to assist the city council, potentially that there could be some land that we own, in which case we'd look to help.
Right.
And our concern is more about the wider infrastructure, like making sure there's sufficient school places, and social services type support, children's centres as
Yes.
well
Yeah.
for the preschool kids.
Yeah. There's one final question about housing associations in general. 2005, Community Gateway took over councils, Preston County Councils, Preston City Councils,
Yeah.
council house stock. Do you think they've done a good job? Is your impression, is it positive of Community Gateway?
That's a good question. Well, I think it's probably mixed at the moment. Let's say the jury's out. In that, I mean, they've got a big task in front of them for what they did from day one.
Yeah.
Because there was a lot of catch up work to do in terms of backlogs of refurbishing and modernising houses. They've been steaming ahead with that, and well done them for doing it.
Yeah.
There's still more to be done. I suppose it's one of those things you'll never achieve completely because there's always more to do.
Right.
But because of the change, which has meant they've got access to resources to do it, compared to the city council previously, that means great progress is being made.
Right.
But there's loads more to be done here.
Yeah. But the system whereby there's a housing association between the residents and the district council, do you think that's the best way to serve the people of Preston East?
Not necessarily, actually.
Right.
I mean, it may work out to be the best way. But the trouble is, you're not running an experiment doing both. So how can you really compare like with like?
Yeah.
My preference is to have as short a line from A to B in terms of provider and consumer, if you like,
Right.
to do things. And that was the case under the city council. But there were economic problems, and that's all it was. It was lack of cash.
Yeah.
This is a way of doing it. If it delivers, I'll be quite happy.
Right.
Because what we have to do is improve the quality of the existing stock and increase capacity.